On their wedding night, he uncovered a secret that shattered everything he believed in. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to our main character. The night was silent, except for the ticking of an old clock echoing through the marble halls of the Whitmore estate. Nathan stood by the tall window, his reflection half lost in the glass, the moonlight outlining the edges of his tuxedo. Hours earlier, he had become a husband. Not by choice, not by love, but by contract. "Marry me," Evelyn had said 3 days ago, her voice cool and steady, as if she were negotiating a business merger instead of a marriage. The heiress of Whitmore Holdings didn't smile often, and when she did, it never reached her eyes. Nathan, a struggling architect drowning in debt after his father's failed company collapsed, had stared at her across the polished oak table, unsure whether she was serious. "Why me?" he'd asked. "Because you need saving," she'd replied, sliding a folder toward him. Inside were the debts, the foreclosure notice, and a check already signed. "And because I need a husband, for now." That "for now" had echoed in his head ever since. Tonight, standing in their lavish bedroom filled with silk curtains and cold air, he could still feel the weight of the pen as he signed his name on the dotted line. He glanced at Evelyn across the room. She was removing her jewelry one by one, every movement precise, emotionless. "You don't have to look so tense," she said without turning. "This isn't a real marriage. Think of it as mutual protection." Nathan swallowed hard. "That's easy for you to say. You're the one holding the pen and the money." Her lips curved faintly. "And you, Mr. Carter, are the one holding the key to my inheritance." It was true. The Whitmore family trust required Evelyn to be married by 30, or lose control of the empire her late father had built. For her, this was business. For Nathan, it was survival. Yet something about her calmness unsettled him. He could handle arrogance, but the stillness in her eyes, like she was hiding a wound no one could see, made him feel both uneasy and curious. "3 rules," she had told him when they signed the contract. "No questions about my past, no physical affection, and never enter the west wing of the house." He had agreed, half listening, desperate to keep his mother's home from being repossessed. But now, on their wedding night, that last rule felt like a whisper in his mind he couldn't ignore. He looked at the closed double doors at the end of the corridor, the ones that led to the forbidden west wing. Every servant avoided it. Even Evelyn's tone would change when it was mentioned. A cold breeze slipped under the door now, brushing against his skin like a warning. Evelyn noticed his stare. "Don't," she said quietly. "Some doors are better left closed." Her words hung in the air, soft but heavy. Nathan forced a smile. "You're full of mysteries, Mrs. Whitmore." "And you're full of questions," she replied, unfastening the last pin from her hair. "Let's hope we can live with both." The clock struck midnight. The mansion seemed to breathe. Nathan turned away from her, but the curiosity was burning now, alive in his chest. He didn't know that behind those forbidden doors lay the secret that would destroy everything he believed about her and about himself. And tonight, that secret was waiting to be found. The morning after their wedding was wrapped in an uneasy silence. The mansion, bathed in pale sunlight, felt both beautiful and suffocating. Nathan woke up on the couch, still wearing yesterday's shirt, the faint scent of roses and perfume lingering in the air. Evelyn was already gone. The empty bed looked untouched, the pillow on her side perfectly aligned. It was as if she had never slept there at all. He rubbed his eyes and stood, his mind replaying the moment before midnight, the cold warning in her voice when he had looked toward the west wing. Every instinct told him to stay away, but something deeper whispered that whatever lay behind that door was the reason she needed a husband in name only. When he went downstairs, the staff stopped talking. They gave him polite smiles, but their glances darted nervously toward the western corridor. "Good morning, Mr. Carter," said a butler, his tone formal but uneasy. "Mrs. Whitmore asked me to remind you that breakfast is served in the east parlor." Nathan nodded and followed the long hall lined with portraits. The Whitmore family stared down at him from the gilded frames, men with stern eyes and women frozen in painted grace. Evelyn sat at the end of the table, a tablet open beside her coffee cup. She did not look up when he entered. "Sleep well?" she asked flatly. "I tried," he said. Hard to rest in a house that looks like it keeps secrets. She gave a faint smile, one that neither confirmed nor denied his suspicion. You will get used to it. The Whitmores have always had rooms better left closed. Nathan sat down opposite her. You talk like this place is haunted. It is, she said quietly, closing the tablet. By choices, not ghosts. For a moment he thought he saw sadness flicker in her eyes, but it disappeared as quickly as it came. She stood, gathering her things. I have meetings downtown. You have free reign of the house. Just stay out of the West Wing. He wanted to argue, to ask why she kept repeating that warning, but she was already walking away, heels clicking sharply against the marble. When she disappeared around the corner, the silence returned like a weight. Nathan wandered through the estate, exploring the east garden and the library. Every room was perfect, too perfect. It was as if time had stopped, as if the house was trying to preserve a memory no one wanted to forget. Late that afternoon, he found himself standing near the forbidden corridor again. The air there felt colder, thicker, as if it carried a different kind of gravity. The door at the end was heavy oak with an antique lock. He could hear nothing from inside, yet the hairs on his arms rose. He took a step closer, then another. You should not be here, a voice said behind him. Nathan turned sharply. It was Mrs. Hargrove, the housekeeper, a gray-haired woman with eyes that had seen too much. The West Wing is sealed for a reason, she said. Your wife would not want you near it. You mean Evelyn? Nathan corrected. Mrs. Hargrove's lips pressed thin. No, Mr. Carter, I mean your wife. In this house, names have power. Use them carefully. Then she turned and left before he could ask anything else. That night, the wind howled outside, and the mansion creaked like a restless beast. Nathan sat at his desk, unable to sleep. The contract lay in front of him, its neat signature mocking him. 3 rules. No questions, no affection, no West Wing. He realized he had already broken the first one. He had questions, and they were multiplying. Around midnight, he heard soft footsteps in the hall. He rose quietly and followed the sound to the staircase. Evelyn stood there, wearing a silk robe, her hair loose, staring toward the dark corridor of the West Wing. Her face was pale, her hands trembling. Evelyn, he whispered. She startled, turning quickly, eyes wide. What are you doing up? I could ask you the same. For a moment she said nothing, then whispered, Go back to bed, Nathan, please. There was something desperate in her tone, something human. Before he could answer, she brushed past him and disappeared into her room, closing the door firmly behind her. Nathan stood frozen, heart pounding. That was not fear in her eyes. It was grief. And he knew then whatever secret waited in that forbidden part of the house. It was not just her burden. It was about both of them. The following days moved like a strange dream. Nathan tried to focus on the new life he had stepped into, the one filled with marble floors, morning briefings, and a wife who acted more like a business partner than a bride. Evelyn kept her distance, polite but unreachable. She left early, returned late, and when she was home, her eyes were always elsewhere, somewhere, far beyond the walls of that mansion. Nathan spent his time exploring rooms that seemed frozen in time. He found old photographs of the Whitmore family, portraits that looked a little too perfect. In one frame, a young girl stood between 2 adults, her smile small and uncertain. The woman beside her looked just like Evelyn, but the man Nathan could not mistake those sharp blue eyes, the same ones that sometimes looked back at him in the mirror. He froze. The name under the photo read, Evelyn and Daniel Whitmore with Nathan Carter. His breath caught. It could not be. His father's name was Daniel Carter, not Whitmore. He stepped back, confusion cutting through him. How could his father have been connected to the Whitmores? He had never mentioned them. The photo looked decades old, but the resemblance was undeniable. He needed answers. That evening, Evelyn returned, her expression weary from another day of boardroom wars. We need to talk, he said. She hesitated, then sighed. If this is about money or the contract, it is not. It is about my father. That stopped her cold. Her fingers tightened around the strap of her purse. What about him? Nathan led her to the study and pointed at the photograph he had placed on the desk. Explain this, he demanded quietly. Evelyn's eyes widened as she looked at the image, her composure slipping for the first time. Where did you find that? In your library. It was just sitting there like some kind of ghost waiting to be found. Why is my father in a picture with your family? She looked away, swallowing hard. Because once, long before this marriage or the contracts or the lies, Our families were one. Your father and my mother, they were in love. Nathan stared at her, the words not fitting together in his mind. That is impossible. My father died with nothing. He was never part of your world. He was, Evelyn said softly, until he left. Until my mother broke apart trying to save the empire he helped build. Your father walked away with his name changed and his promises buried. He left her with debts and rumors that nearly destroyed her. That is why my father never forgave him. That is why your name, Carter, was erased from every record here. Nathan shook his head, anger and disbelief mixing in his chest. You married me because of this? To settle some old score? Evelyn's voice broke slightly. No. I married you because I thought I could end it. The feud, the bitterness, the weight of our parents' mistakes. I thought if I gave you a chance, if I gave us a chance, it might heal something. Nathan laughed bitterly. A contract marriage is your idea of healing? She flinched at the harshness in his tone. You think I wanted this? That I wanted to live inside this museum of secrets? You were my only way out, but I see now that maybe I just pulled you in instead. The silence that followed was thick. Outside, thunder rolled across the hills. Evelyn turned away, her shoulders trembling, though she tried to hide it. The West Wing, Nathan said slowly. What is in there, Evelyn? What are you still protecting? She closed her eyes, her voice barely a whisper. The truth, and the truth hurts more than you think. Before he could press further, she walked out, leaving him alone with the photograph. He stared at it again, tracing the faces with his thumb. His father's eyes seemed to stare back, almost pleading. The storm outside grew stronger, wind rattling the windows. Somewhere in the house, a door creaked open, the sound faint but unmistakable. Nathan looked toward the west corridor, his heart pounding. He knew he should not, but something deep inside him whispered that tonight the answers would not wait any longer. The storm raged through the night, drumming against the tall windows as Nathan stood frozen in the corridor. The sound of that door creaking open echoed like an invitation he could not ignore. His pulse quickened, his thoughts a blur between fear and defiance. He knew Evelyn's warning, her voice still lingering in his mind, do not go near the West Wing, but every unanswered question now pointed in that direction. Slowly he walked down the hall, his bare feet silent against the cold marble. Lightning flashed through the glass, casting long shadows that danced across the walls. The old portraits seemed to watch him as he approached the forbidden door. Its handle was old brass, cold to the touch. When he turned it, the lock gave way with a groan, as if it had been waiting for years. The room beyond was dark, the air heavy with dust and something else, something like grief. He stepped inside and reached for the light switch. A soft click, and the lamps flickered on one by one, revealing a space that looked untouched since another lifetime. There were books stacked neatly on a table, faded curtains drawn halfway, and on the wall, dozens of photographs. He moved closer, his breath catching when he saw them. They were all of the same woman, Evelyn's mother. Her face was kind but weary, her smile faint, and in many of the photos she was holding a child, a little boy. Nathan felt his stomach twist. The boy had his eyes. He searched the room, his hands trembling as he found an old leather-bound journal lying open on the desk. The handwriting was elegant but shaky, pages filled with dates and scattered emotions. He began to read, his voice barely above a whisper. Daniel left today. I begged him to stay, but he said the lies had grown too deep. He took our son with him, said it was safer that way. Evelyn does not understand. She only sees betrayal. Nathan's heart stopped. The words blurred before his eyes. He flipped to the next page, reading faster. If Evelyn ever finds him, she must not know the truth until she is ready. It will break her. He staggered back, the room spinning. He was the boy. He was the son. His father had taken him away from this family, changed their name, hidden him from the Whitmores all his life. And now, years later, he had walked right back into the past without knowing it. His marriage to Evelyn was not just a contract, it was a collision of bloodlines torn apart by secrets. Behind him, the door creaked again. He turned sharply. Evelyn stood there, drenched from the rain, her expression pale as moonlight. You should not have come here, she said quietly. Nathan's voice shook. You knew all along, did you not? Her eyes filled with tears, but she did not look away. I suspected. I was not sure until you showed me that photograph. I wanted to tell you, but how could I? How could I destroy what little peace you thought you had? He felt anger rising, not at her, but at the cruel irony of fate. Peace? Evelyn, my entire life has been a lie. My name, my family, even this marriage, was it all just some twisted game of revenge? She stepped closer, shaking her head. No. At first it was about redemption. I thought if I brought you back, if I could make peace with what our parents ruined, maybe I could finally breathe. But then I met you, and I fell in love with the one person I was never supposed to. Her confession cut through the storm like thunder. Nathan's heart clenched. You love me, he said quietly, the words tasting both foreign and true. Yes, she whispered. And I wish I did not. She reached for him, but he stepped back, torn between the need to hold her and the horror of what they had discovered. Evelyn, he said, his voice breaking, we are family. She shook her head violently. No, we are victims of our parents' mistakes. That is not the same thing. The wind howled louder, slamming the door shut behind her. For a long moment they stood facing each other in that haunted room, two souls trapped between love and blood, between the truth they had uncovered and the future it threatened to destroy. And as lightning illuminated the room, Nathan realized the real secret was not just who he was. It was what he would do with that truth, now that it had been set free. The storm had passed, but the silence that followed felt heavier than thunder. Nathan sat alone in the west wing, the journal still open on the desk. The truth lay bare before him, bleeding through every word written by a woman who had tried to protect both her children from a lifetime of pain. He traced the ink with his fingertips, trying to make sense of the mess his life had become. His father had lied. Evelyn had hidden the truth, and he was caught between two histories that had collided under the same roof. When he finally rose, the dawn was breaking through the rain clouds, painting the sky in muted shades of silver. He walked to their bedroom. The bed was empty. Evelyn was gone again, but this time her wedding ring rested on the table beside a folded letter. His hands shook as he unfolded it. Nathan, it began, the handwriting neat but trembling. By the time you read this, I will be at the estate lawyer's office. I have decided to dissolve the marriage. You deserve freedom from this curse, from me, from everything that has tied you to the Whitmore name. You were never supposed to be part of this. You deserve your own life. His chest tightened as he read the final line. Please do not look for me. He dropped the letter and ran. The drive to the city blurred past in streaks of gray and morning light. When he arrived at the law firm, Evelyn's car was still parked outside. He pushed through the doors, ignoring the startled receptionist, and found her in one of the glass-walled offices, sitting across from her attorney. She looked up, startled, as he entered. Nathan, what are you doing here? You cannot just end this, he said, his voice breaking. Not like this. The lawyer stood awkwardly, sensing the tension, then quietly left the room. Evelyn rose, clutching her coat around her shoulders. It is for the best. You said it yourself last night, we are family, Nathan. This, whatever it is between us, it cannot continue. You are wrong, he said, stepping closer. I did not mean it that way. You are not my sister, Evelyn. You were my father's stepdaughter through his first marriage, not his blood. I checked the dates in the journal. We are not what we thought. She froze, staring at him, her eyes wide. You are certain? Yes, he said firmly. It was your mother's first marriage that tied our families together. My father came after, long after. They kept the name hidden to protect you. We were never bound by blood, only by lies. For a moment, she just stood there, silent, her mind trying to process what he had said. Then, her knees weakened, and she sank into the chair behind her, covering her face with her hands. All these years, she whispered, I hated a man who was not even my enemy. I built walls around myself for nothing. Nathan knelt in front of her, his voice soft but steady. Evelyn, we cannot undo the past, but we can choose what comes next. She lowered her hands, her eyes glistening. And what do you choose, Nathan? He took her trembling hands in his. I choose truth, and I choose you. For the first time since their wedding, she let out a small, broken laugh. You are impossible. So are you, he said gently. But maybe that is why we found each other. She hesitated, the ghost of a smile tugging at her lips. Even if the world sees this marriage as a scandal? Let them talk, he said. They have been talking for generations. It is time we give them a new story. She looked at him for a long moment before nodding slowly. Then we start over. No contracts. No secrets. Only love, he added quietly. Evelyn reached out and placed her ring back into his palm. Then put it back on me, Nathan. For real this time. His hands trembled as he slipped the ring onto her finger once more. The storm outside had ended, but in that small office, it felt like something far greater had just begun. The past had tried to bury them both, but now, together, they were finally free to write their own ending. The days that followed felt like the first breaths after a long storm. The mansion, once silent and cold, began to change. Curtains were opened, the scent of fresh lilies replaced the dust of the past, and for the first time since their wedding, laughter echoed faintly through the halls. Nathan and Evelyn worked side by side to repair not just their home, but everything that had been broken between them. The weight of secrets had finally lifted, yet the path to healing was not simple. Some nights, Evelyn would wake from dreams that left her trembling, visions of her mother's face, of letters never sent, of years wasted in silence. Nathan would find her standing by the window, lost in thought, and quietly wrap his arms around her. "You are safe now," he would whisper, and she would close her eyes, letting herself believe it a little more each time. One morning, as the sun broke through the clouds, Evelyn walked into the grand dining hall to find Nathan studying a stack of blueprints. He looked up with a boyish grin that softened his usually serious face. "I have been thinking," he said. "Dangerous words," she teased, taking a seat across from him. "What are you planning now?" He spread the papers across the table. "The West Wing. It is time to rebuild it, not as a shrine to the past, but as something new, something alive." She frowned gently, her voice cautious. "You want to erase it?" "Not erase," he said. "Redefine. Your mother built that space for love and lost it to grief. Let us give it back to what it was meant to be." Evelyn studied the blueprints, her eyes softening as she imagined it, the cold marble replaced with warmth, the shadows replaced by light. "What will it be?" she asked quietly. "A foundation," Nathan said. "For children without families, for young architects and artists who need a start. We will call it the Whitmore House of Hope." Evelyn looked up, emotion flickering across her face. "You think the world is ready for that?" Nathan smiled. "The world never is, but it learns when someone dares first." She reached across the table and took his hand. "You are daring, Nathan Carter." He squeezed her hand gently. "Only because I finally have something worth daring for." In the weeks that followed, the mansion became a construction site filled with energy and life. Workers came and went, laughter mixed with the sound of tools, and the West Wing slowly transformed. Evelyn spent her afternoons helping design the interior, filling it with art and color, while Nathan handled the logistics. Every evening, they would walk through the hall together, imagining the day it would open to the public. One night, after the workers had gone home, they stood in the middle of the nearly finished West Wing, the faint glow of lanterns bouncing off the newly painted walls. "You were right," Evelyn said softly. "It does feel different. It feels alive again." Nathan smiled, pulling her close. "So do we." She rested her head against his chest. "I used to think love was something that destroyed people, but now I see it as what rebuilds them. And forgiveness," he added quietly. "It is what keeps love standing." Evelyn looked up at him, her eyes shimmering. "Then promise me we will never go back to secrets." "I promise," he said. "No more locked doors." For a moment the world outside seemed to fade, the whispers of the past, the weight of their names, the legacy of two families finally at peace. Evelyn smiled, brushing a tear from her cheek. "Maybe this was what destiny meant all along," she whispered. "Not revenge, not redemption, just renewal." Nathan kissed her forehead gently. "Then let us build a life on that." Outside, the moonlight spread across the estate, and through the open windows of the West Wing, a warm breeze carried the scent of spring. For the first time, the Whitmore mansion did not feel haunted. It felt like home. The grand opening of the Whitmore House of Hope arrived faster than either of them had expected. Reporters gathered at the gates, guests filled the newly restored West Wing, and the sound of music drifted through the once silent mansion. Evelyn stood before the mirror in her study, adjusting the silver clasp on her dress, her reflection almost unrecognizable from the woman she had been just months ago. Nathan entered quietly, his suit perfectly pressed, his smile proud but calm. "You look like the woman I first imagined," he said softly. She turned to him with a small laugh. "And who was that?" "The one who could turn a ghost house into a home," he replied. She shook her head, smiling. "You always say the right things." "That is because they are true," he said, offering his arm. "Ready?" Together they walked down the grand staircase as applause filled the hall. The guests stood, a sea of familiar faces, investors, old family friends, even board members who once doubted her. Evelyn took a deep breath and stepped forward to speak. "For years this house stood as a reminder of loss," she began, her voice steady and clear. "But today it becomes a symbol of hope. My family's name carried pain for too long. From this moment, it will stand for healing, for second chances, and for the belief that what is broken can be made whole again." The crowd erupted in applause, flashes from cameras filling the room. Nathan watched her, admiration in his eyes. She had never looked stronger, more certain. But then, just as she stepped away from the podium, a man's voice cut through the celebration.